back to On the Count podcast. I'm your host, Pedro Lugo, and I have with me Key Oni Stevens as my co host. And I also have my guest here today, Jennifer Blue. Welcome, Jennifer. And just really quick, and just one thing Jennifer Blue, she is a domestic violence survivor that
I
has
can't
turned
see.
advocate. So we're going to be having a great conversation with Jennifer and just to be able to introduce her, and it's a pleasure. It's actually the first time I get to meet you, Jennifer. So it's a pleasure to meet you. Where are you
So
right now? You're in your, I think you're in your car, but you are somewhere else.
I'm
You're
in
not
my
in North Carolina.
yeah. So I'm in my car. I apologize. I'm literally at work at the jail. I came out to do this podcast with you. So I'm in Detroit, Michigan at the moment.
Detroit, Michigan. All right.
Yes.
Um, what? Go ahead and give us a little background on how you got into correctional work, and what made you get into correctional work.
So I actually started doing COVID testing for the state of Michigan. We were doing public sites, and then we picked up the Michigan Department of Corrections. We started with the juvenile detention facility. Then we picked up the men's and women's prisons.
So this is you started working in corrections now, just before that, or once COVID testing and they hire you for this?
Once COVID testing started.
Okay, all right. Um, how you enjoy working with juveniles at that time doing
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
He
that?
said,
Okay,
how did you enjoy working with juveniles?"
It's
that was
I
the
just
answer I
wanted to
was
make sure
looking for.
everybody heard the sigh.
Can you hear me better
I'm
now?
sorry.
I don't know.
Yes, I'm sorry. In my personal opinion, it was actually it was rougher for me working with juveniles than the adults. Because
Yeah,
I'm a
because
mom, and so it was hard seeing all of the youth coming through and for what their charges were, and then the attitudes, the attitudes, and then a lot of it was sad though. They just came from a rough spot. They came from a rough place in life, and it was just really sad to see them end up in the correctional facility.
It's sad on two fronts because one, kids aren't born like that. And a lot of times you have
Exactly.
people that go, these kids today, and it's like kids with every day, it's an upbringing, right? We have our kids that are
Hmm.
just like that in every generation. But the one of the other sad parts is you have the outliers, the people who are brought up that way and they turn out good. And then I don't like the way they trash on the kids who don't because they're the outlier. And a lot of people don't put enough focus on, parenting and situations and how these kids at, 10, 12, 13, 14 end up in these juvenile facilities,
Hmm.
not giving them the avenues to protect them when they have bad home situations or things like that. Because you are, for what everybody wants to say, you are mostly a product of your environment, right? And it is sad because a 40-year-old going to jail for the first time is not as heartbreaking as a 14-year-old. It's just never going to be.
no, it's heartbreaking. I worked with juveniles for a while before, and the heartbreaking part is the parents. Some of the
Yes.
parents some of the kids I work with, it wasn't just the kids. The parents just didn't want to take care of the kids. So they
Hmm.
give enough time. They didn't put enough time towards the kids. They didn't put enough education, and then they put them in the system. And I know I had one kid that just wow, I could go home, but the parents didn't want him home. They didn't want to deal with him. He did have issues, but they didn't want to deal with him. So he's in the system. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with you?
Did either of you two ever? Because I am not a fan of group homes because I managed one before, and that's a whole nother episode. But that's the closest I've been from working with juveniles with problems. Do you remember like that kid? It might be many, but do you remember like that one kid that you saw the potential in them and you're like, if I could just take that kid home and raise that kid, like this kid would be great.
Well, yeah, I used to get
Yes,
to
a
see it.
lot. Yeah, a lot of kids like that. And it's just same, with me working with women in in domestic violence. So many of them I just want to bring home with me. I'm like, just pack up the kids and come to my house. It's the same with the juveniles. It's like, man, I just wish, I go home and tell my kids, you don't know how lucky you say I'm a pain, but you're very blessed to have me as a mom because I care. And there's so many kids out here that just don't have that structure, that family structure.
You know what, Pedro? That is funny because Pedro, I coached Pedro's daughter, and when she would be in class and roll her eyes at the mention, I'm like, "Oh, you don't know. You better be glad
Yeah.
Pedro's your dad. You don't know.
Oh,
You better be
shoot.
glad."
Right.
Um. So working with juvenile, who else you work? You did the work with adults. Um.
Hmm.
You worked with adults, and one thing that we had is in the jail system, because jail and prison is not the same thing.
At all. At all.
So what difference did
No,
you
not
see?
even close.
Yeah, what difference did you see working with, dealing with those people in jail and dealing with those guys in prison?
So I work at the prison 1 day a week, and then the rest of the days I'm at the jail. Um, it's just two different environments. At the jail, it's their life. That's their everyday life. Here, they're only here at the most 72 hours. Until they go to court. But I'm sure you guys have heard. When people get out of prison, that they're like got that prison mentality.
Right.
I see firsthand how that comes about. And it's rough. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like my first day at the prison, I was gonna go back.
Kind of lost with
I know
it.
how to turn my phone on do not disturb. So, but it was heartbreaking. You know, I was like, Lord, I don't think I can go back. But after my talk with God, He told me that I'm not the judge. I'm just there to do a job. At the end of the day, He's the ultimate judge. So that kind of, I had to like really kind of just keep that mentality
What
of,
what
what, I
was
don't
it?
know what they're
Oh,
here for.
mhm.
Do I feel bad for them? Should I feel bad for them? I want to feel bad for them, but at the end of the day, I'm just here to do a job and go home.
Yeah, you can have
But I
empathy.
treated
Yes.
everybody with respect, and so
Yeah.
it I treat everybody with respect either, anyways, but just seeing them just knowing that like you're going to be here for years. Or you've already been here for years and this is like your everyday life. It's just it's hard. It's harsh. I tell everybody you don't ever want to go to prison.
So we've had a lot of guests on correction officers. Well, we haven't had any corrections officers on, but you're the first, so yay.
Mhm.
We've had a lot of inmates, ex-inmates, wardens, and things on. And one of the things we haven't talked a lot about is women's facilities, right, Pedro?
Correct.
Mostly we've talked about it from the male perspective. So I want to talk about because you've worked in both, correct, Jennifer?
Yes, I've only been in the women's facilities a couple times. I'm
Mhm.
majority of the time in the men's facilities.
Okay. So your what can you explain from some of the differences and the nuances that you saw at the women's prison since you're more associated with the male's prisons?
Um,
Sort of like from
I
the juvenile perspective, how it hits a little different because you're a
yeah.
mom.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think with the women's, I was just really shocked at the demographic of how many young women are in prison now. I was really surprised that, I mean, I don't know really what I expected, but I remember I wasn't expecting to see so many young girls in prison. And then I wasn't expecting to see so many older women in prison, like in their 70s. I was really surprised at that too. But it was really just the demographic of the young girls.
And what did you get a chance to talk to any of them about why they were in prison or how?
No, no,
Oh,
not really. This is basically good morning. I mean, it got to a point where they didn't even want to say good morning, which I'm going to speak to some, especially when I'm getting ready to, stick a swab in somebody's nose. I'm going to say good
Yeah, yeah,
morning.
yeah.
Um, but like we can't, they can't even know our names.
Oh wow.
That
Okay.
they know us as regulars. They have nicknames. I usually have braids in my hair, so they always call me braids. Good morning, braids. Hey, braid. But other than that, no, we can't. We really can't
Yeah.
have personal
Inmates are
conversations with
great
them.
at creating nicknames, Keone. They are great, especially something peculiar about you, whether it's your hair, where you're
Hmm.
from, probably your shoes. They create.
Well, what was your nickname, Pedro?
I have no idea. Didn't well. Um, Rico Suave. They used to say
Rico.
all the time. I don't know. But I got that a couple times. But
Well, to Pedro's credit, Jennifer, a lot of the guests that we've had on that spent times in prison, they always speak so highly of Pedro, of that officer that always showed the utmost respect. I mean, he made you follow the rules, but he was so respectful, and especially
I
when he
love
became a
that.
counselor. So they're always talking about that. But Pedro always says, "I'm also a realist. There's 700 of you, and there's three of us." So
that's a totally
Yes.
against me when you're in prison. But I had a chance to work with short period with women, and I think that was the most difficult time for me to work with corrections, and it's just women because they're different. We are different, but
We are.
um, they're a little bit more cunning and conniving than guys are. Guys are pretty much
it's
Mm.
okay to say smarter. It is definitely okay to say
oh yeah, no,
smarter.
they are. It's not the smart part. It's not the smart part because they are smarter in a lot of things, but they're very cunning in what they do and how they're going to do it. They can be very conniving, especially because they're always trying to trap you into little things, and they'd be like very very nice to you, but you can't be very very nice to them because once you start being nice, then they start rolling in. It's like uh, what women can get over men is way easier than men can get over to women. And they do have it because I know guys, they just convince um, staff members to do all kinds of stuff, especially women. I don't know if you ever watched that Escape, if the two inmates escaped in New York and they made a movie, and
Mm-mm.
who got them out was a woman. You know,
Mhm.
we had in
Mm.
Butner, we had one of the two escapes Butner had in the 80s. One was done by a woman to get the inmate out. Walk
I
them out
heard
the
of the
door.
one recently, like it last year, I believe it was. She was a CO and she got the inmate out.
I didn't hear that
This
one. But
if you watch as much YouTube as I watch, you can see a lot of them, especially on Cop Watch and even though the body cam one is not a correctional one, you'll see the. Excuse me, one
but
second. We'll
God
edit that
bless you.
out.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
We'll
God
edit that
bless
out.
you.
Um, I think it's called Red Tree videos where they show interrogations, and sometimes they will have cops, correction officers come in, and these correction officers have had relationships with the prison. Like this one female correction officer, they were like, "We have the uniforms that you cut a hole in the back for access to him." And she would stand in front of the laundry basket, and he would stand behind the wall. So all they saw was
Wow.
a wall and her standing in front of the basket, but they can't see him. But you can see this if you're paying attention. You can see the subtle movements, right? And it's just like, you as a person like Pedro, and you, a rational person, is like, there is no one in this prison that's going to make me risk my well-being, my career, my life, and my freedom for this. But
You'd
it
be
happens.
surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
I as you were talking, it also I do remember noticing in the women's facility a lot of emotion.
Mhm.
Like this one woman, and then I did feel bad because I thought about kids, like God, they miss their mom. I'm sure, a lot of them had kids, same for men too. Like I'm not taking it away from,
Yep.
a man having kids and me not feeling emotional for him, but I did feel emotional for the women. And I remember seeing one inmate and she was crying And I just felt so bad for her. And she's like, I don't feel like going to work today. I'm crying. She was crying and she just really wanted to take the day off.
Mhm.
And the guards were really kind of hard on her. And I remember just feeling for her so bad. But, you know, what they said to her was valid. Like, we didn't want to come to work either, but we're here. So, same goes for you
Yeah.
too. You got to go to work. So, but I remember her crying, and I just wanted to like hug her and be like, "Sis, it's gonna be okay." But it's pretty emotional. I have a family member that was very. I got to be careful saying this, but he was very high ranking in the prison, in the
Mhm.
corrections facility, and his one thing he told me before he passed away: I never want you working in the prison, because I used to want to be an actual CO.
Mhm.
Because I grew up in the town where the state prison is. And so everybody works at the prison. So I wanted to work at the prison. And he was like, absolutely not. And he reminded me of a time when we were at the mall. I was like 12, and we ran into one of his corrections officers, and her mouth was wired shut. And he always reminded me of, do you remember that lady you saw, years ago, and her mouth was wired shut? He was like, she got trapped in a room with 4 inmates, and they literally beat the mess out of her and broke her jaw. And so his like biggest fear was for me ever to work in the corrections facility. And he passed away 2 years ago. And then like a year later, I started working, and I know he's up in
You
heaven
waited.
listening. Yeah,
You,
he's
you,
like, man, that girl, she's so hard headed.
you know
But
what? You did that right, because if you had did it and then he died, I'd be like, you sent that man to the grave.
oh
So
my
you
gosh,
did
yeah,
it. So
no.
you did it right. Well,
Go.
I
I know
think
he
one
took you
thing.
down, but I feel I can understand why, and I have a lot of respect,
Mhm.
for COs, corrections officers in general, but female ones too, for
I think
sure.
one thing that people don't think about, and Pedro, of course, you can correct me on this, and Jennifer, your experiences of working in jail and prison is just like when you think about becoming a cop or being in the military or being a corrections officer, you're thinking about the job, the duty, the prestige, the order, the commitment, and all that. And I don't think people are prepared, even the ones that do a great job, of the emotional toll it can take on you if you're a human. If
Mm,
you're a person with empathy and sympathy, like you're in there and you're going to do your job, but I don't think people understand the emotional toll that it takes on officers and people who work in the system, seeing person after person. Now, some people get desensitized to it, but not everybody does. And I don't think people think about that aspect at all. What do you guys say?
I haven't got there. I don't think I would ever get to that point.
Mhm.
It's tough.
Think for me personally, the most heartbreaking was working with mental health.
Mm.
That
Mm,
really
Oh yeah, because you're like, they don't belong here, but where do they go? Yeah,
that they don't belong. Some guys do. They're
yeah.
better. It's just the the level of having to deal with them, because you see these facets about them.
Mhm.
They're, you try to medicate them, and you're trying to figure out, then, oh, this medication is working, this medication is not working. Then he stopped taking it, he's a total different person. When he's taking the medication, he's one person.
mm,
So sometimes you don't know what you're going to get when you walk in. So you're always mm, like extra vigilant. You just more aware of everybody. There's, oh, he's changing. What is he doing different? Then you get on the call the doctor. I got such and such. He's been acting different the last couple of days. Okay, make some notes. Well, I don't want to make notes. It's just he's acting different. I'm gonna make some notes and let me call you. Let's check on him. And just the change that you have a guy that he's so medicated, and he can't really move or just not be the same. Or you see this guy that comes in, he looks great. All of a sudden, because his mental health is just off. Then you see him 6 months later, he's gained 200 pounds. What are you?
mm.
I'm like, it's just having to take a guy, a grown man, and teach him how to do basic stuff, because he don't know how to do it. Or you got a guy that is just, his case is, well, he did finish already his sentence, but because of his mental health status, he can't go back to the streets. Nobody wants him. The family don't want him. We can't find him a place to. So he's still in prison.
So, that's one of the things working with Pedro, Jennifer, that I didn't know. He worked in federal prison, and you can't get out if they don't have an address to say. I didn't know that. I thought once you're
I didn't
free,
know
you're
that either.
free.
We
Yeah.
can't put you on the street because we don't have nowhere to send you. We don't have nowhere to send you. You know, it's like we can't put you on the street. We gotta find somewhere, whether it's a
Mhm.
homeless shelter, a house, somebody's gonna take you in and take you. Then we have an address. But once we don't have an address and nobody wants to, because we have that, um, he had to stay. We have to stay. We have to make
And
other
I did
arrangements.
not know that. I
Wow.
thought once you're
Wow,
free,
I didn't know that.
like the movies show you, when you're free, you just walk out the gate and go on about your business.
Right.
No.
The state does that. The state opens the door. You're done. Get out.
But in
We
federal
can't.
prison, they will not send you anywhere unless they have an actual legit, and they verify the address, right, Pedro?
They verify
You
the
can't
address.
just
They
give
have
them an address for your
there.
aunt's house who owned it when you went in, but it's owned by a different family
Oh,
now. You've
I
got to,
never knew that.
yeah.
I've taken some people to exactly to their home because they were sick. They couldn't drive. The family. All right, let's get you there. We're gonna get you there. Gonna put you in a
Mm.
van. I've driven from North Carolina all the way to Texas to drop off an
Oh, God bless you. God bless
we
you.
ain't that
See,
crazy.
I see a,
Hey,
I
he got
wish
per
more people.
diem.
Yeah, I got paid pretty
Yeah,
good.
but still, like, I wish more people had that empathy.
Mhm,
Literally, I do, for
Well,
sure.
the
Because,
their caseworker arranges that. We just
mhm.
take them. So that is some cases because we wanted to get them out. We do have the address. We
Now,
just
are you assigned to do that, or you have to like you raise your hand and volunteer to accept to
Well,
do
it's
it?
mostly volunteer.
Yeah,
We
so that's why
always
the heart thing comes in because
yeah, mostly
Pedro,
volunteer.
I know you already.
Yeah,
You're gonna be that guy. I'll drive him to Alaska.
oh,
You're gonna be that guy.
we've driven him. Yeah, it's been,
Yeah.
that was a funny drive. I never. Yeah, that guy was. He was. I don't think he, especially because he was very sick. He was dying. I think he died like
Mhm.
6 months
mm,
after we took him home.
But
oh,
at least he got to see the family and everything
He
before.
was. It's so funny. Okay, here he is. He's dying of emphysema. He got all this. He doesn't smoke in the prison, but as soon as he got to where we dropped him off, you got a cigarette. I'm dying for a
mm,
smoke. You got all your medication. Here you go. Wish you the best. Got back in the car and we left. We said he did last 6 months. We were surprised with that.
Yeah,
oh,
that's better than dying in prison, though.
Yeah, it was better for him to die
Yeah.
there. Yes.
When you hear sentences, Jennifer, that's an effect to you. When I see, and we go back to the young people, when I see a 22-year-old who gets 30, 40 years and 30 years in prison, and some people say, well, at least he's going to get out. You went in at 20 and you're out as 50.
mhm.
I mean, we're
Terrible.
living free in the world, and sometimes changes from one year to another are annoying. When we get an upgraded phone and it doesn't do what we want it to do because of the last phone, we're annoyed. So can you imagine? I mean, when you hear that someone's getting 30 years at 20, and that's not to feel sorry because some people commit crimes where that's what you need, and sometimes that's not enough. But that's always a hard thing for me too, depending on the crime.
It is difficult for them. I don't know, Jennifer, you met anybody like that, but I've met quite a few. The one that really stuck out in I still see him standing there, and actually, he was one of the cases you remember watching the show The Wire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this guy is actually one of the characters. Well, he was one of the guys that did on The Wire. He's actually one of the guys. And when he was to
Mm,
get out, I met him up front, and he's standing staring into nowhere. He's just staring, and I say, "You okay?" He said, "No." Why? I'm scared.
oh,
I've been locked up all this time. I have no idea what's waiting for me out there right now. And here's a grown
mm.
man. He's a big guy, and I see him in prison. He handles himself very well, but this time he's outside that door, about to hit the door. They're about to pick him up and take him to the airport, and he's scared to death.
Can you imagine what an airport was like when he went in?
Exactly.
As opposed to now. Remember, we used to be able to, we're all old enough to remember being able to walk up to your family to the actual gate, right? And see them off. Oh,
You can't do
Not
it.
now.
Not now.
No.
But
And and it's crazy because I noticed that like when we would go in, one of the biggest things that they would always comment on was like our shoes, our gym
Mhm.
shoes. Because we wear scrubs and gym shoes, and they're like, "Oh yeah, those are the new Vapor Max, or those are the new," and they were just like they loved to see our gym shoes. It was like crazy. Yeah, they
The
always
simplest
complimented us on our
things,
gym. Yeah.
the
the little
little
things.
details that would
Hmm.
make
The,
their day. Those little things. Oh, how was that? And then they just have to have a conversation about your shoes and where you get them, how much it costs. They want to know this, they want to know that, and
Yeah.
just the simple stuff. And
it's
uh,
that break from that daily routine and just that semblance of something from the outside world that they can attach to for that moment. It's like what we do in the real world when we're watching a movie or TV and we're getting away from our reality, right? They're
Hmm.
getting away from their reality for a second. So they have someone like you said, sometimes they don't want to talk, but when they do, you try and it don't even realize how powerful of a service that is, not just doing the COVID test, but talking to you simply, like you said, about your gym shoes. Um, because we've talked on this show, Jennifer, a lot about how people perceive inmates. When you're growing up, you're taught everybody in prison deserves to be there and everybody's a hardened criminal, right? But then you learn that ain't necessarily true all the time. So we also talk a lot on this show, and I'd like you to talk about this, is we always talk about how we need to treat prisoners that have gone and served their time, and now they're trying to integrate back in society if this is how we really want that prison system to work. And we know how that can be. We talked about certain states where you can't even get an ID card. How are you going to get a job if you can't get an ID card? I love companies that hire inmates. There's a lot of
I
companies
do
out
too.
there because it's like if you're helping them get back to being productive, it lowers the chances of them going back because of what they did. And those are mostly like drug crimes, burglary. We're not talking about serial killers here and stuff
Right.
right,
like that. Um, so, how do you feel
I
about how society views people when they get out of prison? And what do you think we should do as a society to help them integrate back into society?
You want me to go first?
Yeah. Yeah, because they've heard
Yeah.
Pedro sing this
they've
song a
heard most
thousand
of us.
times.
Okay. No, I absolutely love the reentry programs. I think there needs to be a lot more reentry programs and more resources for them. Because like you said, they do need to be able to get a job. They do need to be able to get an ID card. They it might have been like you said, they might have been away for 15, 16, 20 years, and so much has changed then that not only, as far as like getting an ID or a job, just mentally being processed back into the world, if that's the right, I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for, but it's a transition for sure. And so I definitely feel that the reentry programs, I know a gentleman that runs a reentry program in North Carolina, wonderful guy. And and they do such wonderful work. And I know a lot of people feel that like once you have a label on you, you're stuck with that label for life. I don't agree with that. We've all made poor choices in life. And I'm not talking about, like you said, serial killers or anything. And I do feel a lot of the sentences for the crime is ridiculous sometimes.
Well, we talked about that with Art Bueller. I mean, of course, this is the court system and not the prison system's fault.
Mm.
But I always don't laugh. But when you see someone commit murder and get 7 years, and then you see someone get busted with some drugs and they get 25, and it's like, wait, what? So if I would have killed the guy, I could have got less time. But then
Right.
you do it, and you get it's all over the place. So
It is for
that's like
sure.
such a hard thing, not hard, but that's such a big topic to discuss, and that's get into the legalese. But we all see that. I'm sure in Pedro's tenure, because Pedro switched from a correction officer to a counselor, correct, Pedro?
I was a counselor
And,
for a while, and
and I know sometimes you'd open that folder and go, "What?"
oh, plenty of times I looked at some of the folders. I'm like, oh my god, if he would have only had a good lawyer.
Mm.
A lot of times you read it and you'd be like, well, if he really had a good lawyer, this probably would not have happened. Or,
Mhm.
had the right people behind them. Because a lot of cases were like, well, They get you to plead because it's a lot easier for me to get you to plead. They have you take you to court. It's going to take longer. It's going to take more resources. So you pleading guilty, and you say, "Well, I'm just going to go to once I'm in prison, I'm going to fight it and see if I can get this off me." But it's very, very hard. By the time you do that,
Mhm.
15 years have passed by a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those appeals ain't easy.
Yeah.
A lot of it's depending on where you live, what state you live, what the crime is. There's so many variables to that. Who's on the appeals board? Again, humans are human. You can have people on your appeals board that are human and sympathize and understand, and you can have people that are desensitized and
Yeah.
still have that mindset of you're in prison for a reason. This is what you did. So it's a crapshoot.
The federal has no longer appeals unless it's an old case from the 80s. So appeals are not being done unless it comes from military or something. They might have an appeal. So everybody gets to do their sentence. You appeal personally. You send in paperwork to the court. I can't remember what exactly it is.
So there's no formal appeals process. I'm
There's
making
an
sure I don't
appeal.
hear
There's an
right.
appeal process. There's not an appeal board like when you used to appeal and they'll come to prison and read.
Yeah.
No, you got to
Okay.
send it to court, and there's a whole.
But there is a parole board, correct?
There is no parole boards no more. Parole boards are an old thing. Parole boards maybe for the state, but parole boards stopped a long time ago. Cases,
Wow.
they had to go back to probably late 80s is the last parole board cases.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's such a big difference in federal and
there's-
prison.
There
And
might
state.
be very,
Yeah.
very few parole boards left for the federal system because they're very old cases, and then check them out. And I know I had one guy. He had been.
Pedro, that's why I always say, not to interrupt you, that's why I always say, Jennifer, I ain't going to prison, I ain't committing no crimes, but if I ever do one, I'm doing it on a federal.
Yeah, I mean, if you going, it's silly to say this, but going,
Yeah. We fighting we getting into a fight at the federal park.
Throw a rock through at a post office and see what's happening.
Yeah, I'm going to federal prison. If I got to go to, if you want to fight me, meet me at the federal park.
But you know what though? I've heard that like some federal prisons are just as bad as regular prisons
Well,
though.
it really
Because you say
depends. Some federal prisons, if you end up in a penitentiary, some penitentiaries are I will tell you, Coleman right now up in California, Victorville, some in Louisiana. These are gang ran prisons that they have to do all kinds of. I've seen we've had to go and help out, and it's just incredible. It's a different living there for the inmates. It's a different for the staff. The staff get
Those resemble
desensitized.
more of the prisons that we're talking
do,
about than they
yeah.
do a federal prison.
Oh, yeah, because what you see on a daily basis, when you see guys trying to kill each other on a daily basis, is very, very different.
So Jennifer, I've told Pedro this story, and our listeners have, but so because my first idea of federal prison was I was from Miami, and my Army center was next to the federal prison in Perrine. That's where Noriega was. I know Pedro know where that was. So the gym I go to is getting renovated, and I didn't want to go pay for the gym in the military center. So my roommate, who was a federal prison guard at that prison, he goes, just come to the gym next door. It's no big deal. So I'm like, okay. I pull up and I'm looking for a gate guard to say, hey, give my roommate's name so I can come in. And I'm texting him. He's like, what? I'm at work. I'm like, where's the gate guard? He goes, there's no gate guard. Just drive in, go to the traffic circle, and the gym's on the right. I'm like, okay. So I'm driving. People are just walking around. I get in the gym. I scurry into the gym because there's prisoners walking around all over the place. So I'm benching, and then 7 prisoners just walk into the gym. I'm there by myself. They start cleaning up. He's like, you need a spot, buddy? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I didn't know what was going on. And then I left, and I was like, I thought there was a prison. He goes, no, it's federal prison, John. It's open. They know not to leave. They go to leave. They got to go to places worse than this.
Yeah, you were at
and you know what? That's a very valid, statement that you just said
Hmm.
right there, because a lot of people are scared to go into the prisons, to work in
Uh,
the prisons. And I'm like, trust me, they're not trying to get any more time. You know, they're you're pretty, you know, my mom, she's so funny, God bless her. When I leave the jail at night, she's like, now honey, you be careful, and I'm like, Mom, I'm at the jail, I'm like at the safest place in Detroit to be at right now, you know. But
Yes,
okay, I'll be careful.
it's dangerous in the streets, not in the prison. Those guys,
It,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, you
I'm
know,
dead.
and maybe everybody
Pedro.
don't realize the majority of the inmates are not looking to get any more time. And I said the
Mm-mm.
majority because you got some guys that come in, usually the younger ones, and they come in with that chip on the shoulder. They're trying to prove the point. Oh, I'm here in jail, blah blah blah. And then some of the older guys might they talk to him and put him in the right direction. Some older guys will talk to them, and they never get in the right directions. You will find them later on. You know, oh, what happened to you? Nothing. I hid the door over there. Okay. So that happens every once in a while. But usually the younger guys have that mentality. But in prison, those guys don't want to get more time. And you were
Well,
talking
you
about
know what
those
it
guys.
is. It's what's everything in the world. We know what we watch on, like with everything
Mm-hmm.
else. Most of us only know what we see on TV and movies, and
On
how,
TV.
I always talk about cops, how they always made it look like every person the cops was getting is the terrible person, and the cops are all great. Just like with the prison shows and prison movies, it's so over dramatized. You think that's what you think. Every day there's a riot about to break out in the prison.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah,
was a
but
great prison movie.
Sometimes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you know, it was a great prison movie, but it was the total opposite of how prison is. Everybody loved Oz, and that was my interpretation of how prison life
I
was when
was
I was
thinking about
I
the
little.
never
same thing.
watched
It had
Oz.
nothing. I was like, I watched Oz. I'm like, no, that's not like that. That's
I
not
was so
like
much younger when I watched Oz, and I was
I
like, "Oh,
was
this is
like,
what prison's like."
no, it's not. It's not.
And then a
Um,
lot of people, to Jennifer, what we were talking about, one of the good reasons why we had you on is a lot of people who have never been in trouble. They think when they're going to jail, they picture prison in their head.
Yeah. It's rough when I see. I think there was a young man, and it broke my heart. He literally just turned 18 in, I want to say like January.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him 3 times since January. No, yeah, I've seen him 3 times in 4 months, and he just turned 18. And I'm like, what are you doing back here? You know, and it's just like he's accustomed to the system. But then you see some kids that come in, you know, for like this one kid. It was so sad. He got duped on a renting a car, and it was stolen. And he, you know, the car was reported stolen, and he's like, you know, I just rented it for my birthday weekend, and he was so scared, he thought he was going, you know, into prison, and they had to, you know, calm him down and let him know, like, dude, you're going to be out probably tomorrow, you know. But a lot of them, when they come in here, because it looks like a prison, you know,
yeah.
they see the barbed wire and all the towers, it looks like a prison.
Yeah, that's the jail, and it's just you come in, do that little time, or you do, while you're waiting for court and
Court.
not
Hmm.
sentencing and all that, and yeah, you go in there, but jail is it's not easy either because you don't know who you're going. They go. The problem in jail is you don't know who you have next to you. In prison, we already had classified a little bit, so we have a better idea who we're gonna put with whom, but we don't know much. We just have to put you
You
somewhere.
I have such a new, I mean, I've always respected the police, but working in the jail, I have such a new profound
It's
respect for the
it's
police
it's a different
officers.
environment.
It's such a different environment because the things I've seen, the people getting brought in, and I mean, and I've learned it's the quiet ones you got to really kind of be on the lookout for, because the ones that come in rah, 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 they're just talking.
Yeah,
But and the officers have told me, they're like, it's the quiet ones we really got to kind of be mindful
yeah.
of. I mean,
Well,
I've been cursed out. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, you just remind me of something.
Oh no, please share, we want to laugh.
No, the guy did that to me. He's all rah 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 in front of all these guys. I'm talking to him, and I said, "Come here." We went around the corner. He said, "I'm so sorry, man. I just had to just." really? He was like apologizing. He was totally different over there with the group,
Hmm.
hollering at me, acting old like a big dog. Then I put him around the corner, and he just his tail went in between his legs. I'm like, I just, oh my god, it was just so funny, just the change, the switch. Was, I'm so sorry. I just had to,
It's sometimes you got to do that. Now she reminded you of a story. Now you just reminded me of a story. When I in the army, I'm not going to say names, but I had this soldier who was an ex NFL player. He was 6 foot 6 and about 280 pounds of no. He's about. I'm sorry. He's 5'11", 280 pounds of muscle. And he was just a specialist, and he lived next door to a first sergeant, which, if you don't know ranks, it's a hell of a lot higher than specialist, right? And
Hmm.
so he came home one day. It was one of those days I chewed him out. He's having a rough day. He comes home and the neighbor's stuff is in his yard, like the kids' toys and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, "Hey, man, I told you, get your crap out of my yard," and blah, blah, blah. And the guy was like, "F you, I'll F you up," and blah, 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 blah. So my soldier goes in the house. Again, 5'11", 280 pounds of muscle. So he gets a knock on the door, and the first sergeant is there, and he goes, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. I don't want any trouble. You were yelling at me, and my wife was behind me, and I didn't want to look like no." So I had to yell back.
I look
"Well,
like a
we
truck.
good? I'll get the
I
stuff
look
Really,
out of
like
the
you were
yard."
good though.
Right. He said, "I'll get the stuff out of the yard. It'll never happen again."
That's
Nah.
funny. That's how people are.
Yeah.
They
Listen,
are. They really are.
Jennifer, real quick, we about to close out, but just want to give you a chance. Really quick, tell me about the Jennifer Blue Project. I just had that in mind. I just had to know.
Oh, okay. So we've recently renamed it. It's no longer the Jennifer Blue Project. It is now Sister Survivor Society.
Okay.
So it was actually developed because I'm a survivor of domestic violence. So I started the Jennifer Blue Project speaking engagements. But the unique thing about the project was I did stage plays. And so I started educating through entertainment. And then I realized with all the women that amazing, amazing women that I would meet, and men too, that would share their stories of domestic violence, that they were survivors of more than just domestic violence. And so that's what Sister Survivor Society is for. It's for women that survived all types of trauma. Because I'm a survivor of suicide attempts, I'm a survivor of drugs, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And I just realized that we're all sisters, we're all survivors. And so with the Sister Survivor Society, we basically, I just want people to acknowledge it, heal it, and then celebrate it. And so I'm working on doing a little mini tour of Sister Survivor slumber parties, where
Okay.
we all just get together and just have a girls' day.
And Jennifer doesn't know this. When she moves to North Carolina, we're reaching out to Petro because we want to develop a program, do like a boot camp, 2 days or 3 days for domestic survivors, and we want to give them acting classes. And the acting classes are going to be more
Yes.
towards confidence and building that up and helping them display that. So, yeah, we got a lot of things we're gonna work out and talk about when she gets here. She's such an amazing
I
person.
cannot wait. Oh,
You
thank
guys
you.
go
I
on.
can't wait to get down there.
If you guys go to Keone Productions, if you go to the playlist Rise with Lisette, you can catch Jennifer's Blue interview on the Rise with Lisette show, where she talks more about domestic violence and surviving. And if you want to watch an even more positive interview, and not to say that was not positive, but that one's heavy on domestic violence, and it's very important for you guys to watch that. You can also find her on the Pretty Smart playlist, where she's talking about all things sisterhood and womanhood. And of course, if you've seen her today, you can watch this episode as many times as you want on her talking about how she's worked and dealt with working in jail and just the nuances of that. And we always love getting different people's perspective who have worked in the prison or jail system, whether they're a corrections officer, a warden, a an ex inmate, or just someone who's contracted to work in that facility. I don't care if you work in the cafeteria. Just the things that you've seen and noticed in the stories that you can tell really help people understand that a lot of these inmates, we look at it as hardened criminals, and a lot of them are, but a lot of them are just people, wrong place, wrong time, bad situations. And if we can get them right, they'll be better in society.
Yeah.
That's my
Absolutely.
spill.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you guys for having me on here. Pedro, I'm so excited to work with you more in the future. Please keep me in mind when you guys start the acting classes because I got some shows coming up. So maybe you guys can help me cast them. You know, that would be
It
amazing.
ain't keep you in mind, Jennifer. You are a part of the
She works
plan.
hard. You're
Okay,
part of
I'm
the
there.
plan.
I'm down.
Yeah, you're the only reason why this plan is going to be happening.
Oh, well, look at God. Won't he do it? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here.
You
I'm
never
here
know.
for it.
Keone and Pedro will do it too, but yeah, he'll do it first. You're right.
He'll do it.
This
He's
has
the
been
one.
really
He's the
great.
one
And
putting us there. He's the one. He's a guy in light, though. So
Yeah,
give
yeah.
yeah,
okay.
absolutely. He's awesome. But I think this shows like this are so important because like we've said so many times today that, you know, it's all only what we've seen on TV,
Right.
you know, and so I just think that people don't I just ask anybody watching this show, you know, just don't put a label on somebody because we've all made mistakes,
Yeah.
you know, and like we said, some people, you know, yeah, they do deserve to be there, but some have done their time. Now they're back in society, and you know, just give them a fresh start.
Fresh start. That's correct. And just there is just a thin line sometimes between
Yes,
them and us. It's a very thin line.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for
Thank
being
you.
here. If you're watching, please do give us a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully, you can catch some more interviews. What we'll be doing throughout the next few months. Oh, we'll keep this going as long as we can, right, Keone? So, and anything else, we also have our email, which is onthecount.podcast@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions, any information, any questions, please send them there as well. Also, you can have that on the YouTube site. That's all we have for today, everyone. It's been great. Nice meeting you, Jennifer. Keone, any last words?
Nope, I
My
gave my
pleasure.
last words.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day, Jennifer. Everybody,
You guys too.